This is your weekly real estate update for the greater Portland, Maine area. These are closed sales in the last 7 days, median numbers. Days on market ticked up a little bit to 8 days on market, so just over a week. The list to sale ratio still at 100%. The average sold price dropped a little bit more to 475, 500, $475,000. This past week, the average 30-year fix came down just a little bit to 6.81%, and U.S. inflation numbers came out. We dropped down again to 2.3%. So overall, market continuing to be super strong in the greater Portland area. The U.S. economy continuing to cool down. And as you remember last week, we had that trade deal announcement. The terms held up. The trade deal is going forward with China. So for at least 90 days, the terms are the tariffs on from China to the U.S. went from 125 down to 10%, and the tariffs from U.S. to China went from 145 down to 30. So more reasonable numbers. Of course, the stock market, like this, took a nice little ride up this past week. Unfortunately, I don't think that it's going to be enough to impact federal rates and mortgage rates. Most experts are predicting that the next 3 voting periods are going to still see the rates stay the same, still too much instability in the economy, still not really knowing, hey, even though maybe we've stabilized this trade situation, did we already create too much issues in cost, too many problems in the supply chain, and is that going to impact pricing in the U.S. in the coming months? So I think the Fed Reserve is pretty nervous about that. I think consumers are nervous about that. And because of that, we're not going to see those rates drop over the next 3 periods. Other things that I want to talk about this past week, did a little bit of research on companies that are really AI forward, not necessarily real estate related, but just using AI, putting a lot of money and effort into AI. And even though they're not necessarily seeing the profits from that yet, what do people think about those stocks knowing that they're AI forward? So you got Microsoft up 8% over the last year. Obviously, Amazon using a ton of AI in its operations, 11% up. NVIDIA, 36% up this past year. And then Salesforce over the last 5 years, 62% up. So why do I bring this up? I think it's important to keep in mind when you're looking at real estate. First off, what big companies in my area are going to be affected by this obviously massive change we're all experiencing? Are those companies leaning into it? Are they going to be stabilized by it? Or are they potentially become irrelevant? And how will that affect the surrounding real estate? And then secondly, I think it's important that as you buy and sell, the agent you work with and the way that you do your research on investing should continue to incorporate the improving tools that we have of artificial intelligence in your real estate investment. If you have questions about this, I've been doing a lot of research. I'm using a lot of those tools. Reach out anytime. I hope you have a great week.